India's envoy to the United Nations has said that India needs to engage with the government and people of Myanmar and that the country will provide financial and technical help to the Rakhine state. At the 36th regular session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva, Mr. Chandar gave his statement suggesting a long-term solution for Myanmar's Rakhine state and commending Bangladesh for its relief operations in the Rohingya crisis.
The international community must extend full support to the government of Myanmar in its efforts. There is a serious problem emerging in Bangladesh, which is reportedly hosting over 300,000 refugees. India has extended humanitarian relief to the government of Bangladesh to support it in meeting the needs of the refugees. The role being played by Bangladesh in extending humanitarian assistance to the refugees deserves recognition. Mr. President, it is apparent that the only long-term solution to the situation in Rakhine State is socio-economic and infrastructure development of the state. Violence in Rakhine State of Myanmar that has resulted in the outflow of a large number of people from the state, many of whom have sought shelter in neighboring Bangladesh. We take note that this violence was triggered off by a series of terrorist attacks which led to loss of lives amongst the security forces as well as the civilian population. Subsequent operations by the Myanmar security forces in the state resulted in a large outflow of people. It is imperative that violence is ended and normalcy in the state is restored expeditiously through a solution based on respect for peace, communal harmony, justice, dignity and democratic values. We urge that the situation in Rakhine State be handled with restraint, focusing on the welfare of the civilian population.
Earlier this month, Chandar hit back at the UN's top envoy Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein for slamming India for its comment about deporting the Rohingya. Chandar had said that India must watch for security threats that immigrants pose and the implementation of law should not be mistaken as a lack of compassion. The UNHCR has reported that over 40,000 Rohingya had entered India after fleeing Myanmar. Let's also listen in now to what the Indian ambassador to Myanmar, Vikram Misri, had to say about Aung San Suu Kyi's speech.
We would like the situation to be dealt with within the context of rule of law, and of course to deal with the issues in such a manner that the kinds of flows that we have seen of people going across the border are stopped and reversed. And I think what we heard in the remarks of the State Councillor today was encouraging from that perspective. She has spoken about a process by which Myanmar will be ready to take back the refugees who have gone across the border.
Let's also listen in to some reactions coming in from UN representative Paul Edwards.
She's welcoming the collaboration with the international community, with the United Nations, and as she says, I hope that this is the start of a new period when we can work together.
Yeah, she's talked about allegations and counter-allegations, and that she would deal with them as per the law of the land. Yes. What do you have to say for that?
I think that she stated it as it should be stated. She's been very clear that the law of the land will prevail, and I think that is how things should be.
Right, joining us live on the broadcast now is my colleague WION's Dhaka Bureau Chief Saad Hamadi for more on that story. Saad, Suu Kyi has said that Myanmar, of course, is committed to recommendations from the Kofi Annan Commission. What exactly do you make of the State Councillor's comments today?
Actually, the actions in Myanmar does not go by what she has said in her speech. The violence that has erupted since October 25, right after the Kofi Annan Commission report was published, it doesn't reflect of her commitment in keeping with the restoration of peace, recognizing the Rohingya citizens. There's a list of pointers that Kofi Annan Commission's report suggested. Three of them included the key ones that I'm talking about, was the recognition of Rohingya citizens and ending the violence in the Rakhine state. Those were the key mentions in that report. But none of that has happened. Even though there has been this eruption of violence created by insurgent groups, including the Arkan Rohingya Salvation Army, which is labeled as a terrorist outfit, the actions that the Myanmar authorities have carried out, the crackdown that they have done indiscriminately on these community, shows that Myanmar is not complying with those advice that the WION Commission has made. So her commitment, as she has suggested, is questionable and does not reflect to the actions that have been carried out.
Right, but she also mentioned, Saad, that Myanmar is prepared to take up this verification process of, all those thousands of Rohingya who sought refuge in both Bangladesh and India. But how practical do you think this entire process is going to be?
I've spoken to a number of diplomats over here, and they've said that this is a renewal of her commitment in saying that Myanmar is ready to take back these people through a verification process. But this is nothing more than a rhetoric, given that it's a very impractical word that she has put through. The verification process that she's talking about, how is this going to get through when these people, the Rohingya community, have no identity? The Myanmar authorities have revoked the citizenship of these Rohingya Muslims back in 1982 through the citizenship law that they have put in practice in that time. And since then, these people have not had more than just a temporary identification card, which they call the white card. But that too had a validation and expiry, and after which they have no identity as such. So when these people have migrated, have fled their homes to countries like Bangladesh and India, how is Myanmar going to verify them as nationals of Myanmar when they don't have any papers? So it's a very clever tactic, as the diplomats in Bangladesh have said, that there is no way to verify these people. The larger question is, will these Rohingya refugees remain in Bangladesh and India and the places they have fled to forever?